we're gonna get started. We've got some slight background noise due to some demonstration happening. Thank you, Pages, for coming in. We really appreciate you. Yes, yay, Pages. So I'm Becca White. I'm one of the co-chairs. Molly Burke is the other co-chair. Today, we're gonna do the demonstration from Veep. Before we do that, we wanted to invite Peter to just briefly speak from Renewable Energy Vermont, and then we're going right to you, and it's your show. You lead the way, so.
Peter has some important information for us.
Super quick. On April 1st, the Department of Public Service made a recommendation to the Public Utility Commission to retroactively cut net metering rates for all 20,000 businesses and residents who currently net meter. So if you are in a community solar program, if you're a municipality, if you are a school that has a net metering program, you will stand to lose tens of thousands of dollars because you've been banking on your rate going up every year, which it has done every time. So I was hoping that everyone on the Constitutions Caucus could email the PUC to say, do not do this. This will put tens of thousands, thousands of solar customers underwater. And it's a really bad, we have till May 1st to get comments into the PUC.
What's the timeline?
May 1st, the public comment period is through May 1st. The PUC will make a decision by June 1st, and this will go into effect over the summer and last for at least 2 years. I can leave these little fact sheets right up here.
One thing with the Veep stuff, yeah.
So would that be the talking points that we should use?
Yeah, yeah. And again, this is
Different about this issue.
in previous years, there has never been a retroactive cut to net metering. It's always been about what happens for 2 years, the next 2 years. And yet, what the department is going to propose to do for the next 2 years is bad, especially considering that the federal government got rid of the investment tax credit. But to retroactively cut what 20,000 Vermonters think they're going to get off their electric bill is like, that's even for this governor, who I consider a very anti-climate change governor. That's even a step too far. And we can't mess with that. And that's what's different about this proposal.
And so we're gonna email out. Peter is gonna come back on the 23rd, most likely, unless we can get Bill McKibben. If anyone has Bill McKibben connections, we want it, yeah. And we're gonna send, well, I'm gonna send language from us individually that we can send to the
There is
community.
more individuals.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
And now, drum roll, please, Vermont Energy Education Program, folks. Show us what you got.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us in. We are the Vermont Energy Education Program. We mostly do this stuff in K-12 schools all across the state. But when we do this, whenever there are parents around, we learn that there are lots of grown-ups who could use this as well. So we thought we would bring you a little science fair today. There will be a case to play with a bunch of this stuff later on. But I'm going to let Erin start off with this thing that's making noise. Yeah.
Okay. There's a couple different ways you could do it with students anyway. And often we start with the basics, right? So we've got a generator. I tell the students this is something that makes electricity. So if it's generating electricity, that's a generator, right? It's right in the word. And as a scientist, we can always show the evidence of what our claiming. If I'm claiming it's making electricity when I spin it, right? You're not seeing any evidence yet. But if I turn on our voltmeter, when I spin this, right, you should be seeing lights. So I can measure the voltage that I'm producing with this generator when I spin it. We often also look at the parts. What do you need? The 3 elements you need to make electricity. Who knows? You need, what are the 3 ingredients that we need to make electricity? What's that?
Magnet.
Magnets. Anybody see magnets in here? Yeah. If I had a paper clip in my pocket, which I do, right?
oh, it is a magnet.
With a silver disc, magnet, right? The carbon. So yeah, we have magnets, number 1 ingredient. What else do you need? What do you see?
Wiring.
Wiring, specifically, what kind of wiring?
Copper.
Copper in what shape?
Tube.
Tube or oil is a good word, right? Winding.
Oh.
Any kind of system where you have multiple wraps of some kind of conductive wire. Could be copper, could be aluminum, could be another wire. So yeah, so that's two things, magnet and wire and coil. If I have this still, what is it doing? Nothing, right? So what's my third ingredient? Motion. It needs some kind of motion or movement. That's it. 3 ingredients to make electricity. That's all we need. So, instead of me sitting here with my fingers and spinning, we can put a squirrel cage on here, right? Or an impeller is the official term. I'm going to turn this so that when I release from my crock pot, I have about an inch of water in there, boiling, creating steam, but more importantly, creating pressure. That we've mounted a nozzle on the lid here that can direct that steam over the impeller. And I don't know if anybody can see, can I have a volunteer come up and just hold it for a second? Or, because I need somebody to show the voltage that we're gonna get, because we've got people all around, right? So I'm gonna release the pressure over my impeller with my lava glove. Because it gets really hot. I'm gonna move these back for just a second.
Want to blow those up?
Don't want to blow those out.
I will
Okay.
say, getting this apparatus into the building today was a very difficult process.
Very interesting. All right, so you're just gonna kind of pivot, squat down. And. Not actually attached. Hang on a second. Yeah, pressure cooker. Right?
Oh, it's still going.
As long as it's spinning, you create electricity. And it turns out this system is how we make the bulk of our electricity in the United States.
Oh, wow.
We heat something, usually we burn it, coal, oil, natural gas, to create steam, pressurized steam, which we direct over an impeller, turn the generator, make electricity. Right? Nuclear, same thing. It's just a hot reaction that's boiling water to create steam. The impeller, same system. Hydro, we can get rid of the heat, right? So now we go directly to the impeller turning the generator. Wind,
Ooh.
right? So a turbine, it's the same system, but now we've taken away that heating element. So we're not burning stuff anymore.
And this is the wild things working with students, is that taking this in and spinning it by hand and saying, my hand's gonna get tired trying to keep the lights on this way. How else could I spin this thing? No kid ever says, let's burn things, boil water to make steam to spin a turbine. Everyone's like, well, why don't you put blades on it and the wind will make it go? Or why don't you put a water wheel on it and the river will make it go, right? That's where our brains go. So when we think about efficiency, what it is that we're up to, this has been reliability for us for a long time. But it's actually fewer steps when we go from some of those renewable sources.
It is. Yeah,
Representative Kleckner and I got the chance to go down on Monday to a fusion demonstration facility in Massachusetts. And they're actually building, not fission, fusion energy, that they're building a plant in Virginia. Should go live in 2032 or sometime 2033. So this is actual, really being built, and it's based on fancy magnets that some guy from MIT designed, to make them super efficient. So, but it's the same thing. It's
same
just,
thing.
they're using, they're gonna heat up water and do what that just did, but,
Right.
so we have other options coming online.
We're gonna have to come up with more demos. So what we'd like to do today is invite you to explore some of this stuff. I'm just gonna give you a brief tour here, and then Eric's gonna talk a little about the other So you've seen the generator. It can be powered by wind. Over here at the station, if you're curious, we've got the awkwardness of electricity used to make electricity. We're bringing wind indoors, but if you'd like to explore that, we have the opportunity to play with this. You can put more blades in the turbine. You can change their angles. There are a number of different parameters you can play with here. If you're curious about that. Over here, we have a solar panel set up.
We
The
actually-
solar panel's
we-
way over there,
We extended our reach.
so that we can get real sun.
It's the end of the sunlight here. There you go.
It is not at the moment, so we'll play with our wiring, but here you can play with the angle of the solar panel and check out the different ways that that changes the output. And we're happy to talk with you about what's actually happening inside the solar panel, if that's something that interests you. Ben from BPERG is also here with a plug-in solar panel and can answer a bunch of questions how that balcony solar thing might be working for us down the road. We thought that was a good tie-in. Great. So thank you for showing up for that. I do not have water in my red bin today, but this is our hydro setup, right? This is the top end of your river. And it flows downhill in a controlled fashion in a classroom to power up the same type of generator that's here on the floor. So if you want to talk with us about that piece, that felt the bridge too far in the state house. And water, thanks, yeah. So that's what's going on with sort of renewable stations here. And then on this side, we have a model of the electrical grid. And it's just gonna walk us through sort of what are the components of it. And
Right.
a couple of scenarios that we may be considering in the near future around our actual electrical grid here.
So we've got different parts to an electrical grid, right? There's always the little people in the closet flipping levers and pushing buttons and trying to make sure that the electrical supply stays consistent. The ISO. That's what it's. Independent system operator. So we have a model of that. Here, we've got a grid. So this is our coal, natural gas and oil, our non-renewables that we're burning, which we're making most of our electricity with, right? In reality, they're just two 2D size batteries, which technically are non-renewable because we throw them away. So we can close one of these switches here, which gets power from the grid operating station through a transmission line to a neighborhood. And so these are all designed to take into classrooms and work with students, right? And so then we'll have students start wiring stuff up, understanding circuitry, looking at the difference between wiring up a little incandescent bulb and seeing how much load that puts on the system. You might have 10 houses going in a neighborhood. And so at the operator station, their voltage starts to drop. And their only task is to keep the voltage up for the neighborhood. We'll start getting brownouts, right, in the neighborhood. And so we'll have the students switch over to LEDs. And we'll look at the load there and how many more LEDs you can power with the same amount of electricity from the station. We've got places here where we can tap into, say, a solar field. We literally just ran out of sun in our windows. We had these all set up with sun this morning. So this will tie in and you can add in additional power if you want to bring in a solar supply for the grid. We can bring in additional generators as well. So all of these scenarios, you can start asking students, well, you just got a heat pump or an electric vehicle. And so we'll have these little motors. And that represents the load that you might be asking the system to supply electricity for.
That's spinning.
Oh.
This is our refrigerator that's running, right? It's going around and around.
You can take the switch on the top of the house and turn it off if you want to see. There,
No
turned off,
power.
Oh, no power.
Stable.
right?
Now it's power, right? So what happens if every one of these houses has a fridge running and then we go through with the electrification that we've been talking about? And now every single last one of these, in addition to the fridge, also has an electric car that's needing to plug in. How many more wires do I need? Right? And if each of these had multiple incandescent light bulbs, what's happening over here?
Right, our power is dropping pretty fast.
Those folks are scratching their head, we can't keep up. However, if we swap these out, put in a bunch of LEDs, we can power the whole neighborhood, sometimes just on that solar panel. Okay? So all this stuff is here for folks to explore too.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do. Now it's making noise.
Great diaphragm guy. So, what would you like to add?
Covers it,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is just one of the type of workshops we're bringing
Very
across.
cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain how heat pumps work?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we can. In fact, we have a whole workshop around that.
Okay.
The short version is, imagine a mini fridge.
Yep.
Okay? And if you take the temperature inside the fridge when it's running, is it warm or cold? Cold. Okay.
Yep.
And if I take the temperature outside by the exhaust fan, is it warm or cold?
It's warmer than inside the fridge.
Yeah. It's
It depends where you are. Yeah, yeah.
It's sending the heat out. So right now you're keeping your fridge cold and therefore the outside is where the heat is going. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's your fridge. So now, here's a cardboard box. We literally do this, right? This cardboard box is your house. If you're trying to keep your house warm with your heat pump, where are you gonna put the cardboard box? If this is your mini fridge, right? Here's my cardboard box. The heat coming out, right? Right now, my house is warm. If I want it to be cool in summer, I put it here, because right here, it's cold, right? Now, you can't move your house, but the heat pump can make the switch on the direction for you.
Yes.
It's a fridge.
Yeah, it's the same technology as a refrigerator.
It's a really cool fridge, but it's a fridge. Interesting.
Was there another question I saw over here?
I was just gonna say, you mentioned, what some of the kids, ask or their perceptions. Are there any more like that to share, sort of what they get surprised about or what they say, this is crazy, I can't believe we do this?
I think the biggest thing, we often start by, I'm gonna do a magic trick. Are you ready? Right, and the fourth graders are all there with you. And then you flip the light switch and they're like, these people, right? But then you stop and ask the question, how did that happen? And it is magic. Like, none of us know, unless we're busy doing this all day, what is actually happening behind the light switch. And I think that is really telling about the state of our society in general, but education in particular, that there's so much in our lives that we take for granted that folks aren't in the business of, taking apart their devices, figuring out what's going on. So it's an illustration to me of the need to certainly do hands-on exploration, but also just think about the systems that we're inhabiting. Because we take them so for granted, right? We all have a computer in our pocket.
Oh, I'll just put myself in the queue to ask a question, then we'll go to Scott. So one of the things that I find really interesting about this demonstration is because you have it separated, like you've got your generation over here and your neighborhood in another place. And this is like the Velcro angle, but do you find that there's a real loss in the distance, even with these small models? Does that come up or?
There could be. We calculated how much resistance lost to resistance basically on the wire, what size wire we needed to minimize that, and we went with that, a size that works.
Yeah, I think that's a whole, thank you for
Bye,
having
Paige.
pages.
Thank
Check out Beep whenever you want.
Yes, we did look at that.
That's
That's
kind of another angle to all of this is like if you had generation at your home, like you had your portable solar or you had your mini hydro or your mini wind or something, the distance that the electrons are traveling is much shorter.
Yeah.
And my understanding is electrons are not like literally like electron A from there is not necessarily going to specifically electron B. It's like, what's the closest source of electricity at any given point? It will go like water where
It's like
the
a
conduit
bucket
is.
grenade.
Yeah.
Energy is hopping.
Exactly. And that blows my mind. That's the part that I'm like, so.
And that resistance question is something that even comes up in classes. So I was in a fourth grade recently where this is a hand crank generator, which is also generated. You turn it, you make electricity. Turns out, if you have motion on that device, you produce electricity. If you put electricity in, it moves and you get a motor. So they're reversible, right? That's the technology in braking on an electric vehicle, right? The regenerative braking, you're actually just reversing the flow with a motor. But what these students did, which I thought was really cool, was they clipped one hand crank to the other, right? And so if I turn this one, all of a sudden I have a ghost on the other end turning the handle. There's nobody turning it, but it's turning. They were just, we're talking about, mind blown stories. Then they went to the next step. They said, well, when I turn this 10 times, my ghost handle only turns 5.5 times. What's happening? Why am I not turning at the same speed? They turned that one 10 times, this one turned 5.5 times. So there's some loss inside there. Then they said, well, maybe it's somehow we're losing in the wires, resistance, right? They then took a whole bunch of these electrical leads and made a long chain, right? And reran the experiment. This is fourth graders, all on their own initiative, and found that it only turned 3.5 times. So they're having these conversations when they have the equipment and have time to play and experiment and figure it out.
So Scott, you had a question, and then others, is it okay for people to ask questions now if they
Sure.
wanted to? Okay, so open to the room, folks, if you got burning thing. Oh,
Yeah, well, so my question is, how do you get into classrooms?
yeah.
How often do you get into classrooms?
Right.
And what kind of classrooms? And I mean, this seems like this is something we got to send to every classroom in the state.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We are inclined to think so too. We get into classrooms through a whole lot of outreach efforts. So we have 9 people on staff that are spread around the state of Vermont, and actually now into New Hampshire as well. We're serving both states. But we've got somebody in Danville, in Springfield, in Shrewsbury, in Montpelier, and myself in Burlington. And so ideally, nobody has to drive more than 2 hours to get to a school. That's sort of what we've tried to line up. We mail a poster to every single school in the state of Vermont in the fall to say, this is what we're offering, call us up. And then staff start calling and emailing everybody in their region to see where they can get in. And it really only works by word of mouth, right? Once we've been in one classroom, we get a lot of down the hall recommendations. And so the thing that we're trying to solve right now is how do we get a building to building recommendation, right? Talking to a lot of principals, a lot of curriculum coordinators, trying to figure out, like, can we go through a district down rather than just teacher to teacher? But the reality is it's teacher to teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in Morristown in the library doing an after-school program, a series of workshops, just for an hour, but the teacher that chaperoned the students to this library saw what we were doing and said, everyone in the school needs this. And so she coordinated then with the school, 15 classes, K through 4, that I've been doing over time. So it's word of mouth and seeing what
And
we
I would
do.
estimate we're getting it for roughly 10 to 15% of Vermont schools on an annual basis. There have been years where that is way higher and years where that is lower, but that's a rough guess. We're doing a whole lot of work in New Hampshire right now. Those schools are more populous, and so you make one contact, and if you're in Manchester, New Hampshire, you suddenly have, 15 workshops that you're going to do. So it's
And
just.
how do you get funding?
We are fortunate to have a contract through Efficiency Vermont, so state money that flows to us, because we used to be the education arm of VDIC. So now we're our own nonprofit, but that money still flows to us. We'll say that contract has shrunk rather precipitously in recent years. It is less than half of what it was. And so I do a lot of fundraising. So private foundations, corporate sponsorships. We do ask schools if they are able to pay for programming to do so. The majority of the answers is no, and we don't turn anybody away.
Great.
Well, thank you. And I see, yes, Joey and then Phil.
As a longtime board member of WEET, so grateful for the work that they do because of energy education and understanding how energy is generated, used, saved or not through efficiency measures. These are such powerful foundational things. So getting into the schools, so I very much appreciate the 2 questions and would just offer as legislators, policymakers, as potentially advocates for the good programming, like as conduits to your community schools, please let your, administrators and others know if you're inspired, or donations, and or wanting others to just know about the work that they do. Again, it's so foundational. The energy committees that I work with a ton, we lean on this. Communities lean on this. It's just like a foundational infrastructure of awareness about energy.
And I tack onto that all of our workshops are aligned with the current science standards. So teachers are being asked to teach these things, X, Y, and Z. All of our workshops are aligned by grade band to support that.
So Phil had a question that Candace.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I imagine the kids bring up renewable versus not. And, you know, this is a climate caucus.
Yeah, we're.
So, I mean, do you like bring that in, or is it just sort of a side thing? Here's how energy works, and then, you know, questions come up of like, you know, solar and wind or
Yeah.
whatever.
It's a huge component of what we do, and we're really, really dedicated to the idea that the kids should ask the questions and we should provide information that lets them draw their own conclusions. So the content is energy and indeed renewable energy, but the method is this hands-on exploration model, and the point, frankly, is critical thinking. Right? You look at the data, what does this look like? What would be the logical conclusion here? Yeah.
Okay.
And usually it comes back renewable,
We're
so.
we're very careful about that critical thinking piece, partly because we strongly believe it, and partly because it opens up more communities to us coming in and doing this kind of stuff.
And I think for a lot of people, seeing it and believing it is kind of a nice piece, but Candace, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a plug, because I think we're all impressed with this and feel like it is probably very beneficial for students. The current House bill on education reform proposes breaking up the state into 7 cooperative education service areas. And curriculum development would be part of what these 7 different areas of the state focus on. So if that does get past the finish line, I think that would make it much easier for your programs to be talked about and included kind of at the, you know, more than the district level, instead of having to go school to school. It would just be much more efficient to get the word out about important programs like this.
Potentially,
Yeah.
We're here, we're happy to answer questions. I know folks have lots of other things to run up to. I just want to put in a plug for these posters that I'm going to leave here. So each summer, we come up with a poster that we're going to send to all the schools. One side is a list of our programs, the other is an energy explainer of some sort. So we've brought a couple samples here. I have the electrical grid, how it has been and how it likely will need to be, the grid of today and the grid of tomorrow. And then our electricity pie poster, you may have seen.
So important.
This is 3 different pie charts. This is what we generate in the state of Vermont, which is beautifully clean and green. What our utility bills pay for, because we have a renewable energy standard, which, to be fair, this one ought to be like the size of a nickel. We generate way less than we use. And then the final one is what all of New England is using, right, through that ISO we were talking about earlier, which does not look as clean and green. And this leads to really fascinating conversations, especially when we're crossing the border into New Hampshire, which doesn't have the same kinds of policies as we do here. And what sort of pressures does that put on a state like New Hampshire that Vermont does? So these are here, please take them. We're glad to answer questions and or play with this stuff with you. And Ben's around to talk about plug-in solar if you have questions about that.
Well, thank you so much. I think at this point, you've wrapped it for your presentation perfectly. And then we have until, you're here till 2. So obviously, folks, we usually leave, you know, around 1. You're welcome to stick around, get to know things. And then if folks wanted to share information with their local school district, I'll follow up and we'll try to come up with something that you could send to like a teacher or something, because we know our people and we hear from them, and it would be nice to be able to help connect you as much as possible.
One more
You,
question.
Yeah.
Grade levels.
Oh, yeah.
Did you do this for?
Yeah, K through 12.
nice.
And even you just did a gig over at UVM. with-
Yeah, so Tuesday I was.
Even legislators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here's-
Tough crowd.
We do K through 12. We also do community workshops where we work with energy committees and adults in the community, looking at some of these issues and how an adult might then apply some of the decisions that they've come to in the workshop.
Which is where the mini fridge heat pump demo came from, right?
Right.
So we were trying to explain that that's not really been relevant to students so far. It will be down the road, but at the moment it's adults who are
Yeah.
considering that. So yeah, Tuesday I was up at UVM working with some pre-service teachers with a whole bunch of this equipment. And, you know, they're on their way to being elementary school educators and they didn't know how electricity works. So that was an important piece,
Mhm.
right?
You explained it, it's magic. It's-
Yeah, magic.
It's really-
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at your mini fridge thing over there.
It's not really a mini fridge.
Or the tea fridge.
Oh,